Hello, good evening, wherever you are. It's 19:45 British summertime in the UK here, 7:45 p.m. And I guess that if you're in America, the time will be, around about anything from mid-morning to midday, I think. So in that case, good morning to you. I'm probably going to be doing this live stream closer to midnight British summertime next week, just as an experiment so that more of you across the pond can actually tune in, because I appreciate that it's Monday today and a lot of you may well be at work and not able to tune in. So, but at least you can catch up with this live stream by just simply going to my channel and you can find it there. So I'm going to be talking about, let's see, quantum mysticism this week, of the type that Deepak Chopra is keen on. I've been watching some more Professor Dave, and he's done a video on quantum mysticism, which I found quite interesting. Am I coming through okay? Can you just, Stephen Jackson, if you're there, can you just confirm whether I'm coming through loud and clear? Okay, well, I'm assuming I'm coming through loud and clear. Although, as I can see, there's nobody in the room at the moment, but I'll have to keep going because obviously this will appear, so I'm going to keep talking. So let me just sort of summarize what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm going to be talking about, of course, quantum mysticism, and I'm going to be talking, saying a few words about Ricky Gervais, because I know that I did a video on him earlier in the week, and I hadn't realized that he not only talks about his atheism, but he also talks about animal rights. So I'm going to be saying a few things about that as well. And what else am I going to be talking about? Okay, so I watched The Line this morning with Matt Dillahunty and Jimmy Snow. I thought there were some quite good calls there. So that's another topic. I'm going to be kind of just commenting on some of the calls that came in, although I'll be doing at least 2 or 3 of those in my reaction videos fairly shortly. Right, okay. So I'm 2 minutes 40 into this live stream. I'm going to keep going. So let's have a look. What else I'm going to be talking about? Yes, Jesus and wealth. This is obviously assuming that I get the time. I've got the time to discuss this. What was Jesus' attitude to wealth? We see people in the church. We see churches building up huge portfolios and sums, incredibly wealthy. And what was Jesus' attitude to accruing wealth and maintaining it? So I'm going to be saying a few things about that. And obviously you're welcome at any time to, if you're in the live chat and you're actually watching this live, you can comment anytime and you can ask me any question anytime. So if you're watching a recording of this, if you ever come to the chat in the future when it's going out live, you can literally ask me any question you want. So yeah, hello Physics Police, good to have you. Well, I say with us, there aren't too many of us here at the moment, but I'm hoping we're going to get more on board fairly soon. Okay, so I'm going to be reviewing most of the calls on the line, just in a very brief kind of way, making a few comments on each of the calls that went out on the line yesterday with Matt Dillahunty and Jimmy Snow. I'm going to be talking about Ricky Gervais and his attitude to testing on animals, something I've already done a video on, but I'll add a few comments to what I've already said. I'm going to be talking about Jesus and his attitude to wealth. Of course, quantum mysticism. So I watched a video put out by Professor Dave, which I was quite impressed with. And I liked the way really that he tackled the whole topic on quantum mysticism because it's so popular. No, Stephen Jackson, I'm not going to be discussing quantum mechanics. You know, I mean, physics was not one of my stronger subjects, and I only know what quantum physics is in a rudimentary kind of way. So no, I won't be talking about I won't be talking about quantum mechanics, except that obviously we've got the double slit experiment and things like that, and I don't know enough about physics. I mean, I couldn't even really describe and do the mathematics for Newton's 3 laws of motion. So no, don't have any high expectations for that. Yeah, thanks, Physics Police. If I've got any questions for you on physics, I'll certainly ask you. Okay, so I also came across a group on Facebook that I've exchanged a few comments with, a Christian group who claim that they're not religious, and I'll be reporting on that exchange. Also, what I got up to over the weekend on a personal level. Now, look, I think one of the really interesting things about YouTube is, and this is maybe at the center of it all, in a way, the people who are presenting YouTube channels, it's nice to sort of get that personal touch and find out things about them. I'm somebody who enjoys finding out about other people. And if I get the opportunity, I love to hear people's life stories. Don't worry, you're not going to get my life story. Definitely not. But I've been in situations where I've had time to talk to somebody, and well, for example, if I see somebody interesting in a pub or something like that, sitting on their own, it's quite possible I might sit with them and speak to them, hoping to get something of their life story. I'm just interested in people. I'm probably more interested in a random person sat in a pub drinking half a pint of beer and talking to that person and finding out about their life story than I would if I was sitting with somebody like Elon Musk. That's bizarre, I know, but yeah, I find people very interesting, and obviously my channel is more than just about my atheism. I suppose in a way it's partly about me, and I mean, it's like with Matt. I mean, there's more to him than just the fact that he's really good at countering Christian apologetics and being a very good skeptic. And it can be interesting when he reveals more of his true self, when the mask comes down and you can see what maybe Matt Dillahunty really is. I suppose that Matt doesn't really try to hide who he is. That's why he often is not afraid to get upset. And I think it's quite possibly what we see of him on the line is really, to a large extent, possibly who he is. Been watching him for 20 years, and well, not 20 years. Is it that long? No, I've been watching him for 10 years, but I've been watching the shows going back 20 odd years. And he does seem to have changed quite a bit in certain respects over the years, physically, and also his personality seems to have undergone somewhat of a change. It's been interesting to see that. He's got his own interests, for example, snakes, which, you know, I've got no interest in whatsoever. And I'm not going to start talking about my own interests on this channel, because that's not the kind of personalization which I'm going to be doing on this channel. Because, I mean, for example, I'm a vinyl record nut, and the last thing you want is for me to sit here and talk for an hour about why I prefer vinyl to CD and streaming. No, I'm not going to do that. I've got another channel for that, by the way. But no, I'm only going to be talking about religion, skeptics, counter-apologetics, etc. The personalities who are in apologetics and counter-apologetics. I don't know, I just find it all interesting. So let's just have a look at some of your comments. Elon Musk is boring. Well, you know, I've never really spoken. I've never spoken to Elon Musk. I'd like to think that if I sat down with him and had a chat with him, you know, I'd like to think that I wouldn't find him boring. I saw him answering questions about the existence of God, and I thought his replies were fairly reasonable. I thought that he answered in quite an intelligent way. Of course, he doesn't believe in God, and you know, but it would be difficult to believe that somebody like Elon Musk, with everything that he's done, and let's give him some credit. I mean, what he's done with SpaceX is just absolutely unbelievable. It really is quite astonishing. I'd be surprised if he wouldn't be an interesting person. So yeah, maybe a bad choice for me to talk with a random person in a pub rather than Elon Musk. Yeah. But maybe then again, I wouldn't be talking with Elon Musk as an equal, somebody who's achieved as much as he's achieved. So I might be better off having a game of pool or snooker with him and beating him at pool or snooker, and then talking to him. Of course, I'm assuming that I could beat him at pool or snooker. Right. Excuse me a moment. Okay. Let me just start talking about a particular topic. First of all, Ricky Gervais. Let me just get that out of the way. I've known about Ricky Gervais now for a few years, only a few years, of course, mainly because I've seen clips of him talking about his atheism and making various jokes. Seems to me that he's got one or two go-to strategies which he uses, like this thing. If you talk to a Christian, say, well, I'm an atheist, and you say to the Christian, well, you know those thousands of gods out there that you don't believe in. They say, oh, yeah. You say, well, I also don't believe in all those gods, plus also the God that you believe in. That's his go-to kind of counter-apologetics. He doesn't really seem to have much more than that. Somebody said on my channel, if religion has achieved one thing, it's that it's forbidden people from ridiculing it. Really? Well, I mean, I'm ridiculing religion all the time, so I don't really think that's true. Of course, it did do in the Middle Ages. If you ridiculed religion, you'd have to pay for it with your life, most likely, or imprisonment, or trial by hot iron, or something like that. Some suitably nasty punishment for contradicting religion, the religion of the authorities. You could contradict the religion that was thought to be heretical. So the Anabaptists, which I believe that movement, I think it came from Holland, the Netherlands, in the Tudor times, and the Anabaptists, I'm not too sure what they believe. I think possibly they believe that Jesus wasn't divine, but some of them were burned in England in the Middle Ages. So, you know, you could be heretical against their beliefs in those horrible times. Anyway, yeah. So with Ricky Gervais, I've seen him in one or two films as well. Not really been that impressed. He just seems to play the same person all the time, and he seems to do the same stand-up comedy all the time. I'm no great fan of stand-up comedy anyway, so I'm probably the wrong person to comment on his comic abilities. But what I did take exception to was him moving out of his field of expertise and campaigning against experimentation on animals. Now, of course, experimentation on animals should be done only when absolutely necessary, when there is no other alternative, when it is medically proven to be necessary. Yeah. And I did look up the law on this. And for example, if there are alternatives to testing on animals for medical purposes, then they've got to be used. Secondly, and this is where Ricky Gervais failed, because he seems to be implying, he was saying, all right, guys, when you go down to the pharmacy, or, you know, to your local shop, look on the label, don't buy any cosmetics that have been tested on animals. Well, you know something, in the UK, and I've looked this up, and the EU, and most modern countries, say Western style democracies, testing on animals for cosmetics is illegal. So that's already covered. So all we've got left now is that cosmetics are primarily tested on animals. They've got to be tested on two different species, a rodent species and a non-rodent species. Yeah. And they've got to be tested on animals, not to prove their efficacy. Oh, God. Well, at least the research that I've done tells me that they're not tested on animals to prove their efficacy. That can only be done legally on human beings who are part of proper legal controlled trials, medical trials. So, I mean, they're absolutely right. If you test a med on a rat and it cures the rat of the same kind of illness, it doesn't mean it's going to heal the human being. Yeah, I'm absolutely on board with that, but that's not what apparently is done from what I've read. it's mainly to ascertain that the meds are safe to try on humans, because if a med kills a rat and it kills a rabbit, now rabbits are actually the highest rating for testing a potentially toxic substance on a rabbit. They are actually the closer to human beings, in the sense that I think it's the figure is 99.7% that if it kills the rabbit, then it's going to be obviously unsuitable for a human being. To that level of confidence, 99.7%. Now, Ricky Gervais was throwing around some figures and saying, it's been proven, guys, it's been proven. 93% of the time when they try these things out on animals, they don't work on human beings. Okay, well, I don't know where he got this 93% figure, but it seems to me that he's seen one of these figures, like it's 94% for dogs. I think it's 95.6% for mice, or 97% for rats, and it's 99.7% for rabbits. And what this figure refers to is how effective those animals are at pre-warning that a substance is going to be toxic to a human being. And they've got to be tested on two different species, one rodent, one non-rodent. Okay, so obviously, okay, Stephen Jackson's saying, so let's test on humans instead. Well, we don't test on humans for to see whether drugs are safe. We use animals, and obviously there are ethical issues with that. We prioritize our own species, and that's why we do it. If we didn't do it, nobody would take part in the trials, because they'd be testing drugs on human beings that would be killing them. People would know about it. They wouldn't take part in trials. Nobody would take part in trials, and we'd lose out on all those pharmaceuticals. And I know that there are conspiracy theorists who believe that no meds work. I know there are people who think, oh, it's big pharma making lots of money and everything. Okay, well, from the research that I've done and my own experience of taking meds, it seems to me that by and large they do actually work. So I think that's wrong. So it's not a nice thing that animals have got to be tested for this purpose, but nevertheless, that's where we are at the moment, until we can find viable ways of determining that these meds are safe to be used on human beings. Obviously, that will have to continue. I mean, all I can say is, imagine if a member of your family was ill and there was no drug available simply because testing on animals was not allowable. Or imagine that you were ill, and because it was illegal to test on rabbits, for example, nobody had taken part in any trials, and that drug wasn't available to save your life. How would that be with you? Okay, well, it might be all right with you, but there are children out there who are being saved by meds, and I'll go with testing on animals to save those children, because they're not old enough to say, well, don't test on people. I'm not taking that drug because it's been tested on animals. So even just for children, we have to do it, because they're not at the maturity where they can make that choice. I don't know whether you think that's a good argument or not, but we are where we are with that. And now on computer modeling, because Gervais was saying that computer modeling is much more, it works better than testing on animals. No, it doesn't. No, that is absolutely a false claim. Now, the way things stand at the moment is that you can use computer modeling, you can use computer models to test for the safety of drugs, in addition to testing on animals. You can't offer up drugs for clinical trials unless they've been tested on animals, even if computer modeling has been used. The computer modeling is in addition to testing on animals. So he's wrong on so many different fronts. He's also claiming that the reason that they keep this big scam and con going, they're his words, not mine, is so that they can get kickbacks from animal breeders. I mean, that is one of the most ludicrous claims I've ever heard. Do you know how much money is in pharmaceuticals testing? They're absolutely awash with money. I mean, these people who are working in the labs, they've got absolutely huge salaries. They don't need a few grand a year from a beagle breeder as kickbacks. They don't need it. They're already awash with money. No, so I mean, he's got no evidence to back that up anyway. But really, this really just demonstrates this. And I don't know people to tell me this because I know it. I know atheists who are persuaded that they're not really good skeptics. That they might even be an atheist for good reason. They might say to me, "Well, then there's not sufficient evidence. I haven't seen enough evidence to convince me that there's a God." So that's fine. That's a good enough reason to be an atheist, in my view. And then they'll turn around and say something like, "Oh yeah, but animal testing should stop because researchers are getting kickbacks from um, breeders, and it doesn't work. And actually, computer modeling works, and it's cheaper and everything." And somehow they bought into all those lies without really checking them out. But they've got a rational disbelief in the existence of God. Well, that's how it goes. And I can't claim myself that I'm 100% that all the beliefs that I hold are properly reached. I like to think that they are, but I had an example recently of something where I hadn't done due diligence, I hadn't checked something out, and I didn't come up smelling of roses. And I'll tell you what that is briefly. Something that I did on my other channel, because as some of you know, I'm also a big music fan, classical music mainly. And I repeated a story which I'd heard and which I'd seen on the internet and which they'd made a film about. I repeated it, and I admit I believed it as well. I stupidly believed it. Maybe some of you have seen the film about Stalin, who heard a concert being given by a Russian pianist back in the 30s or 40s. And apparently he was so impressed with this piece of music, a Mozart piano concerto, that he wanted the recording. And of course, it was in the days when radio stations didn't routinely make recordings of concerts. And it was in the days before magnetic tape. I'm not too sure how they made recordings in those days. But if a record was made of a radio recording, it was presented in these old shellac 78s, and each one could only hold 3 or 4 minutes of music. So it would be like 4 records to get a piano concerto on it. But nevertheless, he wanted the recording. They hadn't made the recording, and they had to get the pianist up in the middle of the night and all the orchestra. He wanted it on his desk first thing in the morning. They had to get the orchestra up in the middle of the night. This is the story anyway. And they made the recording for him, and they managed to press the record in breakneck speed, and they got it on his desk. That's the story. That's the story that I heard, and which I thought I checked out on the internet, and there was a film made about it, and I repeated this story on my other channel. And then somebody left a comment saying that actually that might not have happened. So I then went and do some research. I went to do some research on this particular story, and I found out that the source of this story was somebody who knew Stalin and had written some kind of biography or personal memoir about him, right? And that some of the material that he'd written about had proven to be true, or at least some of it had proven to be either false or embellished. And when I realized that was the case, I understood that I'd not done sufficient research before talking about this story. And because it could be true or untrue, and I've now got doubts about whether it's actually true. It may have actually happened. There's a fair possibility that it did happen. But given that he's the only source of this story, and the actual recording that exists from that particular piece can't be pinned down to that particular date, it's kind of a bit spurious and a bit doubtful. So I hadn't done my due diligence myself on that. My only defense of that is that I say that there are a lot of things which we hear which are plausible. Yeah. So I could kind of excuse myself because there's nothing supernatural in that story. There's nothing too extraordinary. I know that it's within the bounds of everyday possibility. And so I didn't do sufficient research on it. I've done painstaking research on claims that of near-death experiences. And I've done painstaking research on claims, for example, that a little boy growing up in the 70s or 80s remembered seemed to be recalling the past life of a World War II pilot. I've done painstaking research on those stories because they're extraordinary stories. They appeal to the supernatural. And I didn't do painstaking research on this other story because I didn't think it was sufficiently important, I suppose, to absolutely confirm that it was true. But nevertheless, I did make a bit of a mistake there. But generally on religious claims and other extraordinary claims, I've usually got very high standards. If I see something in the news which looks to me plausible, I often won't go and do extra investigation. And there's a possibility I might repeat this news to somebody else, particularly if it's come from a sort of reliable source like the BBC, CNN, or Reuters, somewhere like that. I might not go and double check it just because it's come from a reliable source. So anyway, there we are. Okay, well, that's all about Ricky Gervais. So who have we got? We haven't got many people at the moment, but let's just see what Stephen Jackson says. Double blind requires testing on people eventually. It seems that many atheists have become animal testing contrarians. Really? Well, we know about Gervais. Who else is? It takes a lot of production to create an LP. Reel-to-reel recording is more plausible. Yeah, well, we're talking about. I think it was the 40s before they were really routinely using. Before they were using magnetic tape, they were using other methods to do sound recordings. Yeah, it does. I agree with you, Stephen Jackson. It does take a lot of production to create an LP, a mind-boggling amount of production. So, okay, let me move on then. And let me just take a quick breather. Yeah, certainly. Okay, so yeah, the line. Matt Dillahunty on the line and Jimmy Snow. So apparently, I've not really been following the election in America. We've got our own election here, which on Independence Day, US Independence Day, is happening. And I'll be up all night watching the results. But in America, you've got Joe Biden and you've got Donald Trump, and Jimmy and Matt were commenting on that. Matt was saying that for Joe Biden, it was an absolute disaster. Well, I didn't see it. I believe that he's over 80 years old. Yeah, I believe that he's over 80 years old. And by all accounts, he did very badly indeed. That seems to me very worrying, that America's got a choice between a man who's possibly slipping into, I don't know, dementia or something like that. He's having memory lapses. He's having trouble keeping his thoughts together. And look, I'm 59. I sometimes lose a train of my thought. Well, not often, but I do now and again. But when you're over 80, it's more likely that it's going to happen. So I feel quite worried that Americans have really got a choice between somebody who's over 80 years old and who they would probably rather go on with to an extent than Donald Trump, who obviously is still in a good state of mind. Okay, you might not agree with his policies, and you might, you might say that, I don't know, you might not like him as a human being. He's been convicted of a crime, etc. So you got a really tough choice there. You've got a really tough choice. It's looking to me like Donald Trump is going to get re-elected, doesn't it? Physics Police says, Joe looked old, sure, but he kept his composure. Didn't seem too bad from my perspective, but I agreed we need a better candidate. But I don't know, you can't change candidates at this point. I don't know how the American Constitution works with this, but if one of the candidates becomes ill, is it possible for them to pull out and to replace it with who would have been vice president? I don't know. Maybe that's an idea. This is one of the problems with electing somebody who's old. I mean, he was elected when he was, what, 76, 77 years old? He's already, in my opinion, too old to elect. I think that there might be a case for having an upper age limit on these elections, and maybe that upper age limit should be 70 because of these very problems. I don't know. Yeah, so that's interesting. And obviously we've got the election here in the UK in a few days' time. I expect that the Conservative Party is going to suffer its worst defeat since probably 1945, when the Labour Party won the election after the war. I suspect that the Conservatives and Rishi Sunak are going to get absolutely obliterated in the election. So there won't be too many tears over that. You know, I used to vote Conservative a long time ago, but it seems to me that most of them are self-serving. Yeah, okay, I know that politicians on all sides are self-serving to an extent, but in the case of the Conservatives, it looks to me like it's been looking to me for a long time now like a party that really just wants to maintain the status quo or strengthen it and improve it for those who've already got wealth. I'm in favor of a meritocracy. So my worldview is such that I believe that your reward should be in proportion to your merit, to the amount of work that you put in. And so obviously I believe that for those who are not prepared to work, I think that they should receive the minimal level of support to sustain them, but not to allow them to have, you know, like this fantastic life, just enough money as a safety net so that in a humanitarian way, they've got somewhere to live and they can afford to buy enough food for themselves and they can afford to clothe themselves in a fairly basic way. And I don't believe they should get any more money than that. Obviously, for those who are not able-bodied, that's a different argument. But broadly speaking, the more work that you do and the more constructive you are in society, then you should get more reward. What I'm probably against is rewards that are way out of proportion with what you've done. So I'm not really sure if it's right that the chief executive of a large company that is also effectively used to be a state monopoly like water companies, I'm not sure if it's right that somebody in that position should earn, say, 100 times more than a member of staff who is going out and repairing water pipes. I'm not sure if that is a good model. I know that for the Conservatives, that is seen as a good model. They argue that the more money you pay to people at the top, the better people you'll get, the company will do better, and the rewards will trickle down to those who are less fortunate. That's not really been demonstrated to be true. So I won't be voting Conservative, and I will most likely be voting for the Labour Party. And I suppose just hoping that they do a good job. I guess that there's going to be no, I mean, the people on the left or people in the center who've been criticizing the Conservatives have been saying for a long time, oh, they've been doing a terrible job, etc., etc., etc. You know, we can sort everything out. Okay, fair enough. See if you can sort everything out. And if you don't sort everything out, you'll have egg on your face. Let's see what happens. But I do believe that there'll be a new government, and I think that Keir Starmer will most likely be the new Prime Minister. I think Keir Starmer and a lot of the Labour Party also come from privileged backgrounds. But at least they're in a party which, you know, by its very name, supports people who are in employment. Everybody who's in employment should be supported by a party that is called the Labour Party, right? Well, I'd like to hope so. Okay, so let's have a quick look at your comments. Stephen Jackson, hope Labour wins. Yes, so do I. I think they probably will. Greetings, Mike Wagner. Beating can drop out, but all the cash he raised can only go to Kamala. Anyone else and it's gone. They earn more than 600 times in the US. Yeah, And I think some of them earn more than that amount here. I just said 100 times as plucking a figure out of thin air just to, demonstrate 100 times. Well, let's say that the average employee earns, should we say, £30,000 a year in the UK. What's 100 times that? Well, 10 times that is 300,000. So it's going to be 3 million, isn't it? £3 million. Yeah, which is roughly what, like the chairman of, should we say, British Gas or something like that. That's roughly about the kind of salary. Oh yeah, they get 3 million, and then they also get a bonus, like £1.5 million bonus, even if they make a loss. I don't know. It's too much of a headache to think about, really. Okay, so let me just go on. Oh yeah, the line. Oh, okay, yeah. So the line. Yeah. So there was this thing about Biden, and there was this thing about Trump and how the debate went. I don't know what the opinion polls are saying in America at the moment, but yeah, I think if I was a betting man, I'd probably bet on Trump at the moment. Okay, so let's just go through the line and some of the calls that came in last night. So yeah, I usually watch it on Monday morning when I start my working week. I usually sit down with a cup of coffee, check my emails, and then I put the line on and gradually start to work. Have a listen to the line. So first person we had was Jerry, who gave us his pronouns. He gave us his pronouns, whatever. Obviously, that's not a pronoun. And whenever somebody calls in and just won't comply, I can only think they either are against trans ideology and the idea that you can have anything but binary sort of sex and gender, and they're just being damned awkward, or they didn't do their grammar lessons and they don't know what pronouns are. I don't know. But if you come in and say whatever is your pronoun, you obviously have got some issue. And it was quite a funny call in a way, because he was over talking Matt. Matt was trying to get a word in, so he was talking, and then Matt cut in and said, okay, you've had your say, now it's my turn. And while he was saying that, Jerry kept talking. that kind of thing is going to irritate Matt, and he's going to get angry about it. So I think that Matt said, why did you give whatever as your pronouns? Jerry said, because pronouns are a joke. Well, actually, no, pronouns are not a joke. Pronouns are very useful, because, when you're talking about somebody to a third person, you can't just keep using them by name. Oh, John said this, and then John went to get his car washed, and then John came back, and then John came into the office. It actually helps if you start off using the name John to identify who you're talking about, and then you use the pronoun, and if it's he, you can then use that every time in place of John. And that's really how English works. That's how pronouns work. After you introduce the subject by their actual name, you then switch to pronouns. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he didn't last long. And then somebody called Ed. Ed called in, and he said that he'd been a farmer. He kind of believed in God, and agriculture led him to God, because he'd seen that if you're kind to the land, and if you do right, if you do right by the land, and you do good things for the land, it responds. And then he started appealing to the God of Spinoza, because Matt wanted to know, well, come on, do you believe in a personal God, or do you believe in, what kind of God you believe in? And he started talking about the God of Spinoza. So yeah, he mentioned Spinoza, and then Matt said, look, okay, if you want to call the universe and all the laws God, that's fine, but don't bother me, because all you're doing is just relabeling the universe and all the laws of the universe as God. Doesn't add anything to it, and it's not meaningful. And let's face it, the God of Spinoza is no God at all. It's the same God that Einstein was talking about. And in no sense, really, that we tend to mean the word, is it a God? Because if you say, well, I'm a theist, if you go to the kind of group I've been mixing with recently, and if they say to me, Stuart, I've heard you're an atheist, is that true? And in the meantime, I've decided to believe in the God of Spinoza. I say, no, I'm a theist. And I say, oh, whew, good. Thank goodness, because you seem like such a nice, reasonable person. And we've enjoyed having you here with us. Thank goodness you're a theist. But if they went up then, and if they realized that I was talking about the God of Spinoza, I mean, how useful would that be? They would only realize that in no way do I believe in anything remotely similar to the God that they believe in, and the God that Muslims believe in, the God that the Jews believe in, and of course many other deities. Because the God of Spinoza in no way is a thinking agent. I mean, it hasn't got any volition. It can't sort of do anything by it hasn't got a will or anything like that, or any of those characteristics that would allow it to actually properly be a God. So, I mean, the God of Spinoza did not create the universe, was not the first cause. And I think Einstein would agree with that. And it's a shame that Einstein several times used the word God. Unfortunately, because theists tend to piggyback on that and validate their own claims, particularly Christians. So Einstein was a theist. Einstein believed in God, and that's good enough for me. How many times have you heard that? If Einstein's smart enough and he believes in God, I will too. But they don't realize what kind of God Einstein believed in, even though they're using a fallacy there to appeal to, that they're appealing to Einstein as an authority in a fallacious way. It's a fallacy. If they were appealing to Einstein on a matter of physics, then it wouldn't be a fallacy, like E equals mc squared. Anything related to relativity or anything like that, then it's not a fallacy. But Einstein, there is no proper existence of God studies. Yeah, I know that there's philosophy, but it hasn't been established that there is a God. That's the problem. So there are no authorities that you could appeal to for God, because it hasn't been established that. If it's established that a God exists, and then there are theologists who specialize in the nature of that God that's been proven to exist, then we can appeal to authorities, people who've studied that real God. You could refer to them, and then that's okay, because they are genuine experts in God. They're studying in an academic way the nature of and the function of a proven God. It's a different thing. Okay, yeah, so that call didn't really go anywhere. I think that, as Matt said, I'm not interested in the God of Spinoza. If it makes you feel good, that's fine, but it's not really a proper God. Okay, and then Angel called in, and she's a black woman calling in to counter the idea that a lot of atheists say they're really surprised that black people in America in particular seem so Christian. There seem to be more sort of evangelical black people in Christianity. Christianity seems to attract a disproportionately large number of black people. And how can you be a Christian after what the Bible did? Not the Bible. How can you be a Christian after what's been done to you in the name of the Bible? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because Christianity used the Old Testament in particular, and the New Testament too, to support slavery. And there's enough in the Old Testament for certain to validate slavery as a godly practice. And I think that even Jesus said words to the effect, obey your God in heaven as slaves obey your masters, or slaves obey your God in heaven as you obey your masters. That's really validating slavery, really. So they had a very, very powerful case if you accept that the Bible is the word of God, and that in morality, God's word is the absolute authority for all morality, and God's authorizing slavery, then it's an open and shut case, really, if you're going to use the Bible to do that. And yet there are Christians who are now arguing, as in fact Angel is arguing, that what stands out for her in Christianity is the loving side of it, and that is the most important thing. Not that Christians use the Bible they weaponize the Bible for slavery, for the purpose of slavery. So Matt said, well, yeah, but you need to go back and look at the words. Have you read Exodus? And she said, no, not really. She knew that there were some passages in the Bible about slavery. So Matt then read out the Exodus verses. And she said, yes. But then she said, you've got to see it in a historical context. Well, this is what we hear from William Lane Craig and virtually every other Christian apologist out there will say exactly the same thing, that the Bible is she said it's like a historical book. And actually Jimmy made a really good point here. Jimmy came in and said, well, look, okay, let's supposing that the Bible is a religious book, is a historical book, and there's a context and it's important historically and everything, and it's like it's cataloging the Jewish nation and the way that it grew. Chronicling is the word I was looking for. Sorry, had it on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, it's chronicling the early Christian Jewish nation. And Jimmy said, well, okay, let's supposing that's true. But do you concede and do you accept that nevertheless the Bible seems to support slavery, even if it's a historical book, that slavery was permitted then in these godly times, and that's the important thing, not whether the fact that it's a historical book does not excuse or soften that position, that problem with the Bible, that it supports slavery. She said yes, she could see that point. So okay, they sent her away with something to think about. It was quite a good call. I don't know, because she said that, her pastor, it was her pastor that said, well, yeah, it's a historical book. But yeah, it doesn't really make any difference. And no doubt, I absolutely agree. The Bible's not, the Bible, I don't believe, is the word of God. I believe that it was written by human beings for human beings, and that if you're going to have slavery in a society, you need to have regulations. And it's completely reasonable that in Exodus, they've got those regulations there. It's like a law book. And it's supposed to be the word of God. It means that in that society, the word of God goes, and these are God's regulations for slavery. So yeah, nobody thought in those days, I mean, look, even in the times of Plato and Socrates. Now, look, I'm not an expert anywhere near ancient classical civilization, ancient Greece. So I don't know if there were people arguing that slavery is immoral or unethical. But as far as I know, and from what I've read in Socrates, in Plato and Aristotle, etc., that the plight of the slaves is not something that was an issue for anybody. I've not seen that even in their. I mean, Plato was more interested in proving that philosophers could be kings, than anything else, than that whether slavery is right or wrong. Yeah. So even advanced intellects like Plato, Aristotle, Socrates had really very little to say about the plight of the slaves, if anything at all. They just let it go on. Yeah. Okay. So there was that call. So then there was Jeffrey. Yeah. So Jeffrey called in claiming to be a deist. Well, that's what he told the call screener. And he said that he wants to believe in a God for a moral base. Well, I can kind of relate to that because, if you start thinking about your morality, it's like I was saying, where did I get my morality? Last week I was doing a live stream and I said, well, got it from my parents. Where'd your parents get it from? Well, they got it from their parents and they got it from various teachings. They went to church maybe. And just, in society, it's generally accepted that you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't do various things. And so I picked it up in that way. And yet I'm an atheist. I don't believe that there's any ultimate foundation for morality. I think they're just rules that human beings have invented in order to make society work and to make society grow. And I don't really think there's much more to it than that. I don't think there needs to be an ultimate moral base. But Jeffrey, who came on saying he's a deist, said he wants there to be a moral base. And then Matt pointed out to him, yeah, but that's not deism. If you want a God to be a moral base, then you're talking about a personal God. And he also said, yeah, well, okay, that's the God I want to believe in. So Matt then started saying, well, hold on a minute. You told that the call screener you believe in God. Now you're saying that, no, you don't believe in God, but you want to believe in that kind of God. And Matt got a bit angry and said, well, look, I don't want to talk to somebody who wants to believe in God. I want to talk to somebody who does believe in God. So, when you do believe in God, phone us back. And then Jeffrey came back and he said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to mislead the call screener or anything. I've been getting a bit stressed out because, what did he say? Yeah, you've been punching down on you've both been punching down on me, and I've been getting a bit stressed out. And then Matt sort of went, oh, we've been punching down on you, have we? And then Jeffrey said, well, no, I didn't say that. And then Matt said, well, you literally just said it. And then I think things went a bit too far. Matt then accused him of being a liar, saying, why are you lying? Why did you lie? And then Jeffrey said, okay, well, I did lie. Sorry about that. But I retract it. And Matt sent him away with his tail between his legs, saying he doesn't want to talk to liars. It's unfortunate, Now, why did he say I didn't say that? Well, in these conversations, you're having these conversations that are moving very quickly. And I can't always remember what I've said maybe 10 seconds ago. And he might have said something in the heat of the moment, which he then subsequently very quickly forgot, then realized, oops, yes, I did say that after all. He could have avoided the lying jibe by saying, yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. I was mistaken. I did say it, and I'm sorry about that. No, you weren't punching down on me, or whatever. He didn't have to sort of admit. I don't think he was willfully lying about that. I think, in all possibility, he'd just forgotten that he'd said it, and then it was such a shock to him to realize that he had said it. Okay, so, and then Randy came on. Yeah, so Randy was another one who had issues with the pronouns. Randy had issues with the pronouns, and this one got quite angry. Matt got very, very angry with Randy. I mean, he gave him the full sort of bigoted jackass treatment, and then eventually just dispensed with him, told him not to bother calling back. So let me just see if there's anything else from that show. I've made a few notes here. Oh yeah, there was one thing about that black lady, Angel, that called in. Yeah, because Matt asked her. Yeah, Matt asked her who goes to heaven. Yeah, or do you believe in heaven and hell? Am I going to heaven or hell? And she said, oh, well, I suppose you're probably going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus. And then Matt said, well, would that be a loving God then that sends me to hell just because I didn't believe in him? So, oh yeah, and there was somebody else who said that, I can't remember who it was, saying that religion is really a very personal thing. We've all got our personal truth. And Matt said no. He said that, we've all got, if there's a God up there, we've all got that truth. It's not a personal truth. If there's an objective God who's up there, then it's a God to all of us. So it doesn't cut it, you saying, well, we've all got our own personal thing with religion. We've all got our personal thing with God and the God that we believe in. And Matt more or less said, no, if there's a God, it's the same God to everybody. We haven't all got our individual God. So, but yeah, I mean, this is something we hear from a lot from theists. It's a very personal thing. Well, I understand what they mean by, like, if I say to somebody, are you religious? They'll say, I don't want to talk about it. It's a very personal thing. Then that's fine. It just means to me that they don't want to have to justify their belief. And that's absolutely fine. It's a very personal thing, but it's not a personal thing in the sense that we all see things different ways, and that for some people there is a God and for others there isn't. And, for one person it's Yahweh, for another person it's Allah. For one person, Jesus is divine, and for another person, he isn't. I mean, no. I mean, we're talking. Religion makes claims about the objective reality, so you can't say it's a personal thing in that sense. The claims that religion is making apply to everybody, so you can't say, "Oh, it's just a personal thing." So yeah, okay. Well, that's the line. Anyway, I thought it was quite a good show. It's worth watching. Matt was on fire now and again, mostly getting in a bad temper about the pronoun issue. But also the first call, I must admit, it's very funny. Just because it's exactly the kind of call Matt doesn't want to start off on. When somebody calls in and says, "Oh, hello, my name's John. I'm calling from London in the UK, and I'm not sure if I'm a theist or an atheist," and blah 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 blah. And then Matt stops him and he says, "Okay." And then Matt starts talking, and the other guy butts in halfway through. And Matt says, "Oh my God, I know there's a delay, but we hear about this delay thing. I don't know how much of a factor it really is." Okay. All right. Let me tell you what I got up to at the weekend. So, as I've mentioned to some of you, I try not to talk about my personal life too much, but the fact is, I'm going out with a Christian lady, lovely woman, absolutely. I mean, there aren't many people you meet in life that you kind of click with, and you find them attractive and sort of interesting and everything and good to be with, and then it turns out that you've got some differences in your worldview. I mean, what do you do? I mean, if you like somebody enough, it depends. And there are some Christian women that I would not be able to tolerate. If it was a kind of Christian woman that had issues with people who've got gender dysphoria, or was homophobic or racist or any of those things which I find objectionable, then obviously it would be impossible to have a relationship. If it was also a Christian woman that firmly believed that I was going to roast in hell, and somebody who was determined to actually convert me, then that also would be impossible. Now that's a shame, because when I was at university, actually, to be honest with you, some of the most beautiful students were actually Christians, and they were in Christian groups. And there was one in particular who I did like a lot. She invited me to her church. I'm trying to remember what they're called. Oh, it was something like Cornerstone or something like this, or what was it? Something like that. some kind of evangelical, happy clappy church that a lot of the young Christians went to. And I realized that it was a road I didn't really want to go down, because I knew that there would be some kind of necessary conversion in there at some stage. So I decided not to go down that road. And generally speaking, I've tried to avoid women who are full of themselves with Christianity. But this lady that I met, I found that she'd grown up on the continent and that she was more like a cultural Christian. She's a Catholic, and I never really see anything of Christianity in her except for Sunday mornings when we go to her church for 1 hour a week, which, you know, isn't really much of a big deal. There's a coffee morning afterwards, and I've met a lot of interesting people. I've said already that I enjoy meeting people and I enjoy finding out about them and everything. And actually, it's been quite interesting meeting some of those people. I met somebody actually on Sunday on the coffee after the church service. There's a coffee, and there was an old man there sitting with some medals, some military medals on. And I said, "Oh, were you in the Navy?" He said, "Oh, yes, I was in the Navy." And he was about 70-ish. And I said, "Oh, did you see action?" He said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "Oh, were you in the Falklands by any chance?" And he said, "Yeah, he was in the Falklands War." And I had a really interesting conversation with him about that. And we were talking about British military aircraft, and, you know, the state of the modern British Navy. You know, I just really found it interesting talking to him. So I've met some interesting people through, and really part of the appeal of local Christian groups in the UK is that you've got this community. I wonder what would happen, in fact, if these churches all just suddenly died off. You've got these communities where people come together and everything, and they've sort of got religion to bind them together. In a way, it's quite sad to think that, you know, those sort of get-togethers wouldn't happen. I suppose people would do other things. They would join sporting clubs and walking groups, and which people do anyway. So I don't know. But yeah, just coming back to this thing. Yeah, so I mean, I've told her that I'm not really a believer, and that, but you know, I've said I'm kind of a cultural Christian also in that sort of sense. But I've said I don't believe in the resurrection. I don't believe in the miracles. I don't believe in any of that. But broadly speaking, um, in a really liberal sense, I'm in line with sort of Christian morality, modern Christian morality, which I suppose is more or less true. Let me just have a look at your comments. Let me just try and get some better lighting out of this. It's on automatic brightness controls, so it will be changing. Physics police, you're looking back at one of the calls. He was confused by hearing his own claim repeated back to him. He has a different filter on what he says versus what other people say. Unfortunately, this makes him fundamentally incapable of honesty. Oh, I see. Okay. Do you guys have Sunday assembly in the UK? I don't know. I don't know what that is. Is that a secular group, Physics Police? Okay, here in California, that's what we non-theists do, to meet on Sunday with neighbors. Oh, I see. That's a good idea, to sing or listen to a lecture. Yeah, I'm aware of this kind of thing. I did a video on it, in fact. I don't really think it's taken off in the UK very much. I probably shouldn't hate to admit it. No, I don't hate to admit it. I find those mornings, those Sunday mornings, quite sort of cozy. Although a little bit bizarre, because of course, I mean, to me, Christianity is no more reasonable than sun worship. And in fact, to be honest with you, sun worship is a lot more reasonable than Christianity. We were at the service in the morning, and the minister was talking about, I don't know, people from past times who worship the sun. And yeah, I was thinking, actually, you can see the sun, you know that it's real. and you get real light from it, you get real energy from it. I mean, it makes a lot more sense to worship something that's real, in that's providing you with so much energy and power, than something that just could be an imaginary god. So yeah, the point about the weekend was that that particular minister, on Saturday, there was an event celebrating his 25th anniversary of being in that parish. And we were invited. And I mean, it was only like an hour. So we went along. I do find it quite interesting to observe these things, because there were, the way that they did that kind of celebration and everything, there were various local church people who came up and sang the praises of this smug minister who was sitting there with a pious grin on his face throughout the whole thing. And there was one story that this much older, he must have been in his 70s, this I don't know whether he was a canon or a deacon or something like that, somebody who was a bit higher up in the church, and he'd come to congratulate this local minister who'd been in his seat for 25 years. And he told a story about, I don't know. No, I'll tell you what it was. No, okay. There was a famous preacher at the turn of the 20th century. I think his name was William Morris or William Morrison, in Scotland. I've not looked him up. Yeah, and he was getting off the train one day, and he saw an old woman crying, and he went up to her and he asked her what was wrong. Could he help? And she said that she's severely ill and she's got an appointment to the hospital in the afternoon, and she's very worried about it because she might not come out alive. And he said to her, well, I can't remember what he said to her, but he just said some comforting words to her, and then he went on his way. I think he asked her what her name was and which hospital it was. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, okay. And then he contacted the hospital. He contacted some florists. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he contacted some florists in the morning, and he had a bunch of flowers sent to this lady. He'd found out which ward that she was in and that she'd survived the operation. And he put on the card, what did he put on the card? I think that I'm telling this story terribly. I should have prepared it before, because I think that she said she was a poor old woman, and she said, nobody really cares about me. I'm just poor. I haven't got any money. And yeah, I remember now. Yeah. So he sent her a card, and he said, I care and God cares too. Yeah, I care about you and God cares too. Okay, well, I mean, it was a kind of nice story, but I thought the punchline was not that he was going to send flowers, but that he was actually going to go there and be there, for when she's waking up. But nevertheless, I suppose it was a nice thing to do. But the thing is, I mean, I can accept his first claim that he cares, but I would have trouble accepting his second claim, because how can he know that God cares about this old lady? He doesn't even know that God exists. He's making a claim that he can't substantiate. But okay, right, okay. So yeah, So there was this celebration, and rounds of applause, etc., etc. And I don't know, it was all a bit much, because there I am sitting as an atheist watching all this, and as far as I'm concerned, he's been in that job for 25 years, drawing a salary, trotting out the same old unproven drivel week after week. He's drawing his salary. He's being paid essentially for peddling doctrine and what could well be false claims. That's another way of spinning it. Of course, the way they spin it is that he's been in this job for 25 years, doing good deeds and supporting the community. My take on it would be somewhat different, although I don't deny that, in all the 25 years he's been there, well, apparently he's done 400 funerals and 600 weddings. So that's quite a large number. So that's a lot of people to see off, isn't it? 400 funerals. Okay. But here's the really funny thing. Here's a really funny thing about my girlfriend. She's 49, by the way, and I'm 59. So there's a bit of an age gap between us. And she looks a heck of a lot younger than me, believe me. Yeah, but here's a really funny thing about her. So she's a kind of Christian that doesn't really seem to know much about the doctrine. She just kind of, I don't know. I suppose it gives her a nice sort of fuzzy, nice feeling. And maybe she kind of believes in life after death. Her mother's 84 years old. And maybe she sort of likes to believe that one day all the people that have died in her life, her father's dead already, she'll see them in heaven. And that kind of thing, I don't know. She likes doing it anyway, and I'm not going to completely destroy her. I'm not going to be the one, because I've said on one or two occasions, I've kind of hinted at my skeptical nature about the whole thing, and she doesn't really seem to be too much interested in talking about that. And I don't really think it would do the relationship much good for me to attack her religion, and that's not what I do. As I said, if she was saying things which are I find objectionable, then that would be a different matter. She's only said so far, I've been seeing her 8 months, only one thing that really shocked me. And I think she was upset about something. And it was concerning taxation, because, what was it? We were having some kind of texting back and forth on some sort of taxation issue. And then she implied that wealthy people were supporting all the poor people and all the layabouts. Now that really shocked me when she said it. It really, oh my God. I mean, it really shocked me. I mean, there's some context to it, and she was getting upset about something, which I can't go into. But there was a cause to that unjust comment, and I actually went and did the research, and I sent her all the figures, and I said, "You're wrong." I said that first of all, I said the bulk of taxation comes from VAT, and VAT is predominantly paid by the bulk of the people buying food, etc., low-cost goods, and that's where most taxation actually comes from. VAT, it's a regressive tax. The less you earn, the higher percentage you pay, right? And secondly, most income tax, about 75-80% of income tax comes from people earning lower incomes, not on super earners, and that the top 5% are actually paying a relatively small sum compared with the rest. So it's not true that the wealthy are supporting people who don't work and low earners. That is not true at all. And I presented her with those figures, and she accepted it, and she kind of withdrew her comment about that. And it turned out she was upset about something else. We could all have weak moments. I've had weak moments. I've said wrong things, and I've often retracted them when I realized that I was wrong. So, but that was the only time when she said something that I took exception to. But anyway, the point is, and this is a really bizarre thing, she's not only a Christian, but she's also into kind of shaman type stuff. And there's a group that she goes to once a month. It's a 3-hour session on a Sunday afternoon. And I've been to 2 of them. I've been to 2 of these sessions just to support her. And I can tell you with no exaggeration, I would much rather go to a 1-hour Christian service than a 3-hour shaman service. Absolutely no contest whatsoever. First of all, 1 hour is much shorter than 3 hours. If I'm going to be engaging in some religious nonsense, of course, better not to engage at all, but you know my circumstances. But I'd rather have 1 hour than 3 hours. But even if those shamans were just doing an hour, I wouldn't be able to tolerate it. because some of the things that they do in that group are just kind of bizarre. And I mean, for me, are nothing more than some kind of weird, kind of almost paganistic, sort of placebo ritualistic banging of drums, rattling, and making of noises with the voice, and movements, and various other things which didn't do anything for me. They didn't do anything for me, and I could always tolerate those things. But what I can't tolerate and what I can't do is something that they call journeying. Now, what that involves, and I'm not mocking this in any way, I'm not mocking it at all. I'm just explaining why I won't be going to any more of these groups, and I didn't go to the group on Sunday afternoon. The reason is that journeying, you're essentially expected to close your eyes, and you're not supposed to visualize, but you're given various cues. And for example, it might be something like the first part of the journey, you've got to imagine yourself in a landscape, and you're going to see certain animals when you start to move. And one of those animals is going to be your guide. Can't believe I'm telling you guys this. One of these animals is going to be your guide, and you have to accept that animal, communicate with it, and that animal is going to guide you through the forest or wherever you are, over the mountain, whatever, somewhere. And then, okay, so this is the hardest part. When I close my eyes and listen to those cues, I don't see anything, absolutely nothing. But you can't get to the end of one of these journeying sessions and then just say, oh, I didn't see anything. So, I mean, in my case, I make stuff up. I've got an imagination. I can make stuff up, but it's actually quite tiring to do it, and I don't really want to do it. So on this occasion, on Sunday, I said to my partner, I'm not coming to your shaman group today, and I won't be going to anymore. She said, oh, why not? I said, well, it's not really for me. I don't really believe in any of it, and I'd rather go out for a lovely walk in the countryside, to be frank with you, than sit in a circle and do that kind of stuff. I appreciate and I respect the fact that you get something from it, but I don't get anything from it. She was a bit upset at first, but then she said, oh, that's fine. I don't want you to come along to it just because I'm going. And yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I had a lovely walk instead. I had a 3-hour walk, and it was really nice in the countryside. Much better way to spend time than doing 3 hours of wacky shamanism. Okay, so what else have we got? Yeah, okay, yeah, so this Facebook group. So I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook account, a personal one, and I look out for, obviously, other groups. They appear in my feed. And one particular, no, it's right, okay. There's a YouTube Facebook group for YouTube creators. I'm a YouTube creator, so I joined that group, and they're mostly smaller channels like my own, not too many followers, just a few thousand or even less. And there was a question one day about something, and I noticed that there was a Christian YouTuber, and I left a comment on next to him, and I said, oh, I'm on the other side. I don't believe there's any God, and I've got an atheist channel. And he came back, he said, oh, well, actually, we're not too different. I'm not religious, but, I kind of believe in Jesus. So I went to have a look at his channel, and I saw, look, I mean, if a Christian says to me, I'm not religious, I'm going to want to know, do you believe in the resurrection? Do you believe in the miracles? Do you believe in the virgin birth? Those are the three. And I don't care if you tell me that you're a Christian and you're not religious. but you believe in those three, I don't care if you tell me you're not religious. I don't care about people applying labels to themselves. Oh, I'm religious, I'm not religious. The only thing I care about is, do you believe those claims are true? To me, somebody believing in those things and saying they're not religious is a bit stupid, really. I mean, it's a bit like saying that you're in favor of LGBT rights, but you don't like trans people. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's probably not a good analogy, but it's a bit crazy to say that you're not religious. And no, I suppose it's like saying that you're a tolerant person, but you don't like trans people, or something like that. So yeah, if you say that you're not religious and you believe in the resurrection, the miracles, and the virgin birth, then to me, that sounds to me like you're fairly religious, or it doesn't matter to me what you call yourself, but you believe in supernatural, fantastic, extraordinary claims. And I said more or less something to that extent. They said, "Oh, there's a difference between being religious and being righteous." And then I had a closer look at his channel, and I thought, "Oh, so he's saying he's actually righteous, not that he's religious." And I take that to mean if he's righteous, it means he only does right things. His morality is the highest that there could possibly be. Yeah, physics police. Sounds stupid, yeah. Maybe he was just trying to be polite by acting in group with you. Yeah, I don't know. It's possible, but when I came back and challenged him on that, and I said that, okay, fair enough, you're not religious, but I've looked at your channel and you believe in the resurrection and the miracles and the virgin birth, which are the claims as an atheist that interest me. So, okay, you're not religious, fine. He's not religious, and yet he's got a YouTube channel and he's evangelizing and preaching, and he's not religious. Okay, I don't care, you know. I suppose I shouldn't really care. It doesn't really matter. What had I moved on to? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll move on to something else. Yeah, this is an unpleasant one, really. Genital mutilation. I looked this up in the UK because I suddenly thought to myself that circumcision is such a horrendous, barbaric, inhuman act on a child that has got absolutely no say in the matter. And yet I know it happens in the UK, and I wondered, what are the laws concerning this practice? Surely it can't be legal to take a scalpel to a baby like that. It can't be. It's just, it seemed to me impossible to believe that it would have to be some serious assault. And yet I discovered, to my surprise and shock, that as long as it's carried out by a medical practitioner, a licensed medical practitioner, it is legal on religious grounds. Well, I suppose that if they make it illegal, which they should do, it's going to upset a lot of Jewish and Muslims, isn't it? And they're just not prepared to do that. I think it's something that I should probably not vote. It's something that I should probably write to my MP about, member of parliament, but I doubt it will do any good. People accept such a horrible practice just because it's religious. I was speaking to a nurse a while ago, and I've raised this question about circumcision, and she said that when she was training as a nurse, I don't know why, I don't know what the context was, but they were given a video to watch showing an actual circumcision. She said that several of them had to leave the room. One of them fainted, and she said it's the most shocking, one of the most shocking and horrible things that she's ever seen. A baby being circumcised. So I just don't really properly understand why Western governments are allowing this this barbaric practice to go on. I understand that occasionally that the child is mutilated or bleeds so profusely that they could be in danger of dying, and a lot of men have been disfigured. Of course, I understand there's also female genital mutilation. I don't believe that it happens in the UK, or at least I hope it doesn't. It's bad enough that it happens to boys. But yeah, that's one of the most serious things. I'm surprised actually that Matt never brings that up about, oh, what's the problem with religion? Religion's okay. It's fine. It's harmless. Oh yeah. It's so harmless that it allows a barbaric, cruel, inhuman practice on a child. I know that there are Jews, and there are Jews certainly who leave their faith, who regret that their parents did that to them. Yeah. Okay. I mean, they they actually try to defend it and say, well, prevent sexual diseases and for cleanliness, etc. It's the best possible thing. And well, okay. Let's supposing that that's true. Let's supposing that that's true. What if by removing my index finger? What if by removing people's index fingers, you could reduce something demonstrable? You could make the world a slightly more hygienic place. But you had to lose your index finger. Would that make having your index finger chopped off right? No, of course it wouldn't. And in any case, as a parent, I'm a father. I got into the shower with my son, and I taught him how to wash his penis properly, how to take the foreskin back and wash properly every time he washes, and be hygienic. And any reasonable father would do that with a child, and not just do it once, but do it again and make sure that they know how to stay clean. And as for the venereal diseases, quite frankly, if you use contraception properly, or at least if you use condoms, should never really happen. You shouldn't really have any problems with any diseases or anything. But I don't think it's a good justification for genital mutilation, what people are suggesting, that it's more hygienic, and that it's only more hygienic because parents are not teaching their children how to clean themselves. Okay. Right. Okay, I'll move on from genital mutilation. Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to talk about Jesus and wealth. Jesus. Okay, so now there are a lot of wealthy people around, and a lot of them are Christians, and there are a lot of wealthy people I see week in, week out. Wealthy people sitting in the church, looking very pleased with themselves. And that's fine. A lot of those people, they've worked hard for their money, but at the same time, they call themselves devout Christians, and they call themselves followers of Jesus Christ. But if you actually go and look at the Bible, you read in the New Testament what Jesus says about material wealth. I can think of at least 2 verses where he, and also by his own example, he puts absolutely no emphasis at all on wealth creation. He seems to see it as a barrier, if anything, to, I don't know, spiritual purity, shall we say. And now I appreciate that I'm using the language of religion, but obviously that's what some would say, that it's a contradiction. You can't love money and love Jesus at the same time, so to speak. Now, we've got several verses. We've got one where Jesus says about one of Caesar's coin, render up to Caesar what is Caesar's, and render up to God what is God's. So he clearly does not associate God's kingdom with material wealth, that kind of thing. And then there's another parable, or not parable, but there's another story where somebody who wants to follow Jesus comes to him, gets on his knees and says, "My Lord, I want to follow you." I'm just paraphrasing here the story. And Jesus looks at him and he says, yeah, the man says, what must I do to follow you? And Jesus says to him, "You must take all your money and give it away to the poor, then you can follow me." And so the story goes, the young man, or the man, just hangs his head in shame and walks away and just seems to disappear. He's not prepared to give up his money to follow Jesus. And by the way, this story for me probably illustrates quite well that Jesus had disciples, but he also preached to the masses, right? So he expected higher standards from his disciples. And I think that probably he expected them. I, I think that Jesus probably only accepted. I'm getting on dangerous ground here because I'm going to start sounding like a Christian. I believe that Jesus probably only accepted into his inner circle those who were sort of worthy spiritually to join him. He would have to see that they had something in them, that they were in some way, somehow, on a higher level than just everyday people. Now, the Sermon on the Mount, of course, Jesus presented his worldview, or his rules for life, I suppose, to the masses. But he wouldn't accept just anybody to be an apostle. You had to be a certain level. You had to be a certain standard. And obviously this story, with this man coming to him, Jesus would have known in advance what would happen. He had this man coming to him who had money, was wealthy, and he probably already knew that this man can't let go of his money. This is going to have to be the first thing. It might not be a prerequisite that somebody would have to let go of their money, but somehow, in particular, he could see that this man loved money above everything else, and that it would be a barrier to him, and it would be enough to bring him down and to reject him, because he would not be able to let go of his wealth to have a chance of acquiring real wealth, the wealth of the kind of wealth that Jesus was offering him. But look, I believe that Jesus existed. I believe that he preached. I believe that in all likelihood, in the Gospels, some of the words that Jesus truly said are there. And I believe that some things have been falsely attributed to him. I find it really hard to believe that, I don't know, the Jesus that I probably would think is real is historical. I would probably find it hard to believe that Jesus, the same Jesus that said, "Give no thought for the morrow and turn the other cheek and love thy neighbor," etc., is probably not the same Jesus that said, "Not a jot or tittle of the old covenant will be changed," because we had in the Old Testament all sorts of horrible things, and this whole idea about giving up your wealth, that is something that would have been so abhorrent to the Jews of the Old Testament and the Old Covenant. I can't imagine that everything that's attributed to Jesus in the Gospels is actually correct. I think it's a mishmash and a mix. So a lot of people pick and choose the bits of Jesus that they want, and I suppose so do I, but I don't live by the word of Jesus as a kind of theological thing and historical thing. It interests me because I think that there is some wisdom there. But I just think Jesus preached to the masses, and he had rules for them, and they also applied to his apostles. But his apostles, he probably wanted to take them one step further, closer to where he was at. whatever that might be. Okay, so I'll say more about Jesus on another occasion. I need to go back and read some of the parables and other stuff. But the crucial thing about me and Jesus is that I believe he existed. I believe he preached. I believe he had wise things to say, and I believe that he wasn't interested in the afterlife. I think that, like Socrates, he was interested in showing people how to live in the here and now, how to, in a way, live an examined life, and how to make the right decisions, and how to do the moral right thing with everything that you do in this life. I don't think that what Jesus had to preach had anything to do with any afterlife or any heaven or any paradise or anything like that at all. I think it was all about how to survive the human condition and how to be the best person that you can be here and now, and that there's no afterlife, there's no God, there's none of that. How do you square that with Jesus saying things like, my heavenly Father or my Father in heaven, etc., etc.? Well, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure that Jesus said those things. They may have just been tagged on by the evangelists who were trying to promote a particular brand of Christianity. Okay, so let's have a look. Better camera and better background. Fred and Six Fly. I started to sub you when you had less than 100 subs, and that wasn't that long away. Your channel grows not because the photo camera, but because you can reason it will go faster if you get a better camera and a better background. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, something. Yeah, you're probably right. That's worth thinking about. Yeah, I take your point. Yeah, I should actually, because I just use my cam on my laptop, and I mean microphone. I've got a headset, and yeah, I absolutely agree with you 100%. I need to up my game and make it look less like a sort of amateur hour atheism. I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll think about that. If I could get some good background, and it would need a bit of thought, but it's something that I've considered doing, and I suppose I've been a bit complacent with my channel because this might seem strange, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere near as well known as somebody like Matt Dillahunty. I'd actually be quite worried for my own personal security because the very thought that somebody could find out where I live actually scares the life out of me. I mean, because I've made anti-Islam videos. I'm doing more and more on anti-Islamic material all the time, and there are plenty of Muslims in the UK. One of these days, somebody might look at me and look at my comments on Islam and say, enough is enough. I've had enough of this, and I'm going to strike a blow for Islam, for the Muslim Brotherhood, and for Allah. And one day, I'll come out of my accommodation onto the street, and there'll be a man with a bandana, and he'll have a machete, and he'll be saying to me, "You're not laughing now, are you, atheist?" But you know what? I'm a very fast runner, very, very fast. So don't worry. Okay, so where are we? Anti-Islam stuff. Well, we live in the UK, Stephen Jackson, and I don't seriously think that I'm going to be singled out and made an example of. I don't do a lot of the things that would really offend Muslims, like draw a picture of Muhammad or burn the Quran. I mean, that's just childish, stupid stuff. I'm not interested in doing any of that. I'll say that the religion's not true, or I'll say that you've got no good reason for believing that your religion's true. I disagree with you. Islam is not true, and not only that, but Islam is a bad religion. It's got bad principles, and I don't believe it's the right way to live your life. I don't think anybody's going to try and cut my head off with a machete for that. And I'm not going to deliberately provoke Muslims by doing something stupid like defacing the Quran, or drawing a picture of Muhammad, or doing some stupid stunt with bacon or something like that. I mean, I'm not into deliberately insulting the religion, the religious. All I'm into doing is just making the point that you've not proven that your religion is true. You've not supplied. You've not provided the evidence. You've got no good reason to believe yourself, and to help these people hopefully straighten out their own thinking, because virtually all of them believe for bad reasons. They believe because they've been fed lies. They've been fed fallacies. They believe, a lot of Muslims believe, their book must be true, Allah must exist, and Islam is the true religion, because the Quran is so unbelievably scientifically accurate. It's impossible that human beings in the year, when was it, 600, 700, when the Quran was written, that they could have possibly known, for example, that the universe is expanding, etc., etc. So we've heard these things many, many times. And all I would say is, even if these things are true, none of them are particularly groundbreaking. None of them are really that impressive. I mean, if calculus was in the Quran, well, I mean, even that wouldn't be, but it would be. I mean, calculus to appear in the Quran. No, I mean, of course, that wouldn't prove that the Quran is true either. It would be a heck of a lot more impressive than anything that is there. Because let's face it, calculus didn't really appear until 1,000 years later. But I'm not really sure what it would take to appear in the Quran. I don't know. I mean, if even something like E equals MC squared is going to be discovered in the 20th century by a famous German scientist, was prophesied, and it could be. I mean, that would be interesting. That would be really interesting. Unfortunately, nothing like that is in the Quran. So, yeah, no. The reason that Muslims believe that the Quran is scientifically accurate is because they haven't done sufficient research. They're only listening to other Muslims making the claim. There are skeptics' websites going through all the falsehoods in the Quran one by one. But if you don't want to know about that, and if you want to go on believing that your religion is true, then you won't go out of your way to try and debunk your own religion. Really, you will. If you're desperate to keep believing, you will avoid those kind of resources. And I've met occasionally creationists who they do nothing but talk with other creationists. They do nothing but go to creationist websites, the Discovery Institute, and that kind of thing. And they really just don't honestly engage. And they just dismiss Darwin completely. They say that, well, people who believe in evolution, they've not really read up on it. They don't really understand the claims. And if they did, they wouldn't believe in it. They'd believe that God created the world. It's not my job to go around trying to educate these people and trying to convince them that if only they did the right research, because they'll say to me, yeah, but you too, Stuart, if only you do the right research, get to the Bible, get to the Bible, get to the Discovery Bible, get to the Discovery Institute website, listen to Jonathan McClatchy, listen to Dr. James Tours, and they'll tell you, they'll explain to you why atheism is not tenable, why naturalism is false, why the Bible is all true. So, I mean, what do you say to that? Well, my only counter to that is that even the Church of England, even the Catholic Church agree that really the theory of evolution is true, and that you won't find God taught in any biology classroom. The theory of evolution is taught in every classroom in the world, as far as I know, except maybe some of the worst Islamic states. So God is taught in theology, in religious education, and religious education, they teach you about the different religions, not saying to you that, well, this one's true but the rest are false. They just teach it you as a subject. In fact, I was talking only very recently with some local people who are Christians who were complaining that religion has been pulled out of local schools because there are some Muslims in this school, and the government has decided that there can be no Christian prayers in assembly, and there can be, and the local Christian minister is not allowed to go into schools. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything because of the context of the conversation, and I didn't really want to upset too many people. No, I decided in that situation not to say anything. I kind of said, well, yeah, no, I did say something, but I tried to be very subtle. I said, well, I suppose that, there used to be a time, like when I was at school in the 70s, it was 100% white. It was 100% Christian denomination. There was nobody else to say, well, actually, by the way, that's not my religion. And we had prayers at Christian, at assembly in the morning, etc., all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I said, so, times have changed a bit because we've now got more of a multicultural society. So I can see how in the schools they're having to deal with Muslims, Hindus, Christians, those with no denomination at all. And yeah, I can understand where the government is coming from. But at the same time, I can also understand why the majority Christian population is disappointed. I tried to put it in as diplomatic a way as possible. So, yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's just go back and look at some of what you're saying. No science in the Quran. Answers in Genesis. Is that the website? There's a YouTube channel, isn't there? I think Answers in Genesis. I think. Fred and Six Flies says no Muslim scientist. Yeah, compare the population of the Jews with 1/100th of Nobel Prize in Science and the population of Muslims. Yeah, well, absolutely. And Richard Dawkins has made this point. He made the point that Trinity College in Cambridge has got more Nobel Prizes than the entire Islamic world in history, which, well, it's true. I know. In fact, he said he said, I think even if you include the Peace Prize. Okay. Yeah, and I read that excellent book about the way that the Christian and the Western world turn the tables on the Islamic world. So, I mean, look, if Islam is true, if any Muslims out there, if Islam is true, and if Allah is the true God, why is the Islamic world doing so abysmal, so embarrassingly badly in every area where it matters? In science, in all of academia, except Arabic literature, for example, in human rights, in medicine, in art. Why is the Islamic world doing so utterly, appallingly badly compared with the Western world, which is now largely secular, but I suppose you could say it was kind of built on, a lot of, that it was formerly Christian majority. Why has your God allowed the Christian God to be supreme through its believers? So I don't get it, Muslims. Why have you lot done so incredibly badly? If Islam is a true religion, then I would expect Muslims to be on top of the world, not floundering where they are at the moment, and only saved only by fossil fuels, which obviously won't last forever. Okay, so where are we? Let's have a look. Better days, diversity is a cancer. Not sure what you're getting at, David. Muslims have fewer scientists. Yeah, that's true. And of course, they've got the disadvantage that they've got girls going to school and wasting time learning by rote the Quran instead of studying real subjects like biology and chemistry. So obviously they're losing out on half their population, and they're stifling real knowledge, scientific knowledge. Better days. Wait a minute. Allah has never told me squat. Yeah, me neither. Knowledge outside of the Quran was forbidden around 1200 Common Era. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay. So I've had my say on Islam, and yeah, I mean, believe me, Islam. Christianity doesn't really worry me. Doesn't really worry me as a religion. Um, Islam worries me. I must admit, it's a it is a significant concern, and we need to sort of push back against it somehow. But apart from just making these videos, and I don't really know what else to do about that. Oh yeah, quantum mysticism. How could I forget that? Quantum mysticism. Deepak Chopra, eh? Deepak Chopra. Clever guy, huh? It's worth $150 million. According to Professor Dave, he's made about $150 million out of his books. He started writing in the early 70s, or in the 70s, I think, and he's selling himself on the fact that he's Indian and people will buy into this kind of this Eastern wisdom. So people think that, I mean, people, it's kind of, I mean, even Christians will buy into this idea of Eastern wisdom because of Confucius, because of Buddha, you know, because of the yogis, and I don't know. It seems to be perceived that there's a lot of wisdom in Eastern religion and that we've got something to learn. But because certain groups in the West have become so disaffected with organized Christianity, a lot have been turning to New Age mysticism. And now this thing seems to have morphed into something called quantum mysticism, which is really just playing on, it's taking this buzzword quantum and it's respectabilizing in an academic way New Age mysticism by calling it quantum mysticism. And I think that Professor Dave, if I remembered right, he was saying that all quantum means in a scientific sense is the reduction of something, a thing in nature, in the physical world, to its smallest possible state or unit. And this word has been appropriated out of science, and it's been piggybacked onto various religious claims, pseudoscientific claims, and I suppose what a lot of us atheists would call just pure woo nonsense. That there's some kind of interconnectedness in everything that's in existence, whether it be animate or inanimate. And it seems that what Chopra is advocating is this idea that the universe and everything in it is a construct, like a human construct. So in other words, it's kind of not real, and that you can invent your own reality. If you can construct the universe and invent your own reality with your own mind, it's like a mind over matter kind of thing, then you can also use your mind to create your own reality and change it. So, for example, you can use your mind to cure illnesses that you've got. What I'm absolutely amazed at, this guy has written many, many books. I haven't read any of them. I must say, I'm loath to pay money to read one of those books, but however, I'm going to try and get hold of one of his books, maybe secondhand, maybe on eBay. I'll buy something, and I'll have a look at it. I know it's going to be a lot of pseudoscientific. From what I've read about him on Wikipedia and other sources, I know roughly what to expect. I don't want to poison the well too much before reading it all, but I'm fairly sure that I'm going to be quoting out of that book, and virtually every single sentence is either going to be meaningless or a claim which can't be substantiated. But yeah, I suppose this kind of feeds into shamanism as well. I was talking about shamanism earlier, although I suppose shamanism predates Chopra. It's all kind of drawing on the same idea that nature has got some kind of supernatural force in it. Nature has got this special force that we as humans, by recognizing it, can somehow tap into and get healing power out of it and somehow energize ourselves and have better lives. I don't believe that's true. I think that nature has got some amazing forces and amazing energies in it, not in the way that Deepak Chopra means, just purely naturalistic energy and forces, the same type that we've got, but I don't believe that there's any kind of connectedness between us and the plants and all the animals in nature. I just don't believe in any of that at all. So, and obviously the idea that, I mean, it's so palpable nonsense that reality is a construct, the universe is a construct. What? For each one of us, does that mean, that must then mean that the people that I come into contact with are also constructs? Isn't that kind of solipsism, that everything is just a figment of my imagination and I'm the only brain in existence, and that everything in it, and that everything that I experience is a construct of my own consciousness? Same thing, really, isn't it? Yeah, so it must mean that each one of us, yeah, so you guys out there, if Chopra's hypothesis is correct, then this computer, the room I'm in, and you guys replying back to me, you're all just a construct of me, Stuart. I'm the only person in existence. So forget about it, you guys. You're just a construct of my consciousness. That's how absurd it all is. And yet people are buying into it. The stupidity of people who consume this material, and it has to be stupidity. It has to be. So yeah, I'll buy a book, I'll have a look at it, and I'll come back to you about it, just to see what the claims are. Let's have a look. What else have we got? I think we're drawing towards an end. If any of you got any questions you want to ask me, go ahead, because I think in about 5 minutes I'll be wrapping it up. I'm just trying to think. I've got my Bible here, the Holy Bible. Now look, let's be honest. I mean, I don't believe in the supernatural claims in here, but I mean, this is still a remarkable book. To think that the Jews, I mean, it is remarkable to think that the Jews got together all these books at that time, 600-700 years BC. All right, I know that the ancient Greeks were also writing, but it's still amazing that they put all these books together and compile them so meticulously. How many other civilizations have done that? You've got to admire them for that, even if we accept that you don't believe in the God, you don't believe in the supernatural claims, you don't believe that Moses parted the Red Sea, do you, or any of that stuff? And you obviously don't believe in the resurrection if you're an atheist. Sorry about this. Yeah, but okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, all right. I've opened. Let's just have a bit of fun here. I've opened at Proverbs. Let me just read out one of the Proverbs. 13. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not respond to rebukes. Okay, well, that seems fairly reasonable. A father should learn from a son. Of course, it depends on the father, doesn't it? Not all fathers have got wisdom to pass down to their children. Some fathers are absolute dicks, so not always, but I get the general principle. Yeah, a mocker does not respond to rebukes. Well, I suppose that I spent a lot of my time mocking religion, and I get rebuked for it. Yeah, but I do respond to those rebukes. So, from the fruit of their lips, people enjoy good things. but the unfaithful have an appetite for violence. Okay, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so if you speak well and you speak wisely and you're nice to people generally, then obviously good things will come to you. Okay, I'm taking a 2-minute break. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I get dry eyes, unfortunately, and I literally just had to go to the bathroom and splash my eyes with water. It's a problem I've had for a while. But anyway, just coming back to the Bible. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, Proverbs is probably my favorite book, and the language in it. Obviously, it's been translated into English here, but there's some beautiful language here. Though, yeah, okay. The righteous hate what is false, but the wicked make themselves obnoxious. Well, I can't argue with that and bring shame on themselves. Yeah, okay, well, I mean, I don't like the word righteous because I wouldn't like to say that I'm righteous. I would like to say that um, uh, I like to believe in true things and I don't like lies and that kind of thing. So, but, you know, I would never like to use the word righteous. To me, it's got too much of a religious connotation. Okay, somebody's saying read Proverbs 1, verse 7. Okay, fair enough. Proverbs 1, verse 7. Okay, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Oh, don't ruin it for me, will you? I was enjoying reading these. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. Okay, all right. It's not going to be a conversion moment. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I certainly agree with the second bit. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And I don't know. I mean, I would say that I've met people even fairly recently, and I know people as well that it seems to me deliberately do not want to listen to reason. I mean, my friend who's a conspiracy theorist, he's being a fool and he's not prepared. He's either not prepared to listen to wisdom. He loves his own foolishness so much that he would rather have that than um, my instruction would be to him to go out and properly investigate all these claims. But he loves the foolishness of it too much. Whether he's aware that it's foolishness, I don't know. Okay, well, anyway, yeah. Anyway, I just want to say, of course, look, I don't believe in any of the supernatural claims. I'm not a Christian, and I don't believe in God. And there's a lot of bad things in this book as well. But yeah, the Proverbs are mostly pretty much on the nail. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Right. I don't know who you're talking about, the deranged philosopher. You better not be talking about me, otherwise I'm going to ban you. Well, anyway, but it's good to have you here. And I'm not going to chase away viewers just for calling me names. So welcome. But you're calling yourself deranged. Yeah. So whatever you might think of me, by your own mission, you're deranged. I'll take a look at your channel anyway. Oh, deranged philosopher saying, I can prove God that easily. I think you mean easily. Okay, well, go ahead. Prove your God. You're making a lot of claims there. You will lose. It will be painful. I think that, you know, I don't really have time to debate individually with people on my channel because I just don't have the time. But what I do tend to do is when I release a video, if I see any comments come in from Christians or theists challenging atheists, I will usually pin that comment while the video is still hot and then watch replies come in from atheists. And those discussions can sometimes go on for over 100 comments. And the person who left the first comment is kept busy for the next 2 or 3 days. I find that quite sort of satisfying because the atheists who are arguing on my behalf really are using all the same rebuttals that I will use anyway. But it just saves me the time. Yeah. Okay. You're not really. I thought you were going to argue for God. All you're saying is, "Oh, you're stupid. I'm clever, deranged philosopher." Come on. Maybe you'll make a claim that we can deal with, or you'll present an argument. Hmm. Oh, you're not talking about me then? Well, that's okay. But believe me, I'm used to being insulted. Look, every single YouTuber has had to suffer insults. It's quite a big thing to put your face out there and let other people see, what you look like and how you sound and everything. And you're not going to survive as a YouTuber if you've got a thin skin. When I did a video on Andrew Tate, I had a lot of criticizing him. I had a lot of his followers saying to me, because I'm saying to him, I don't believe that he can justify his belief in God. He hasn't presented any good reasons. He's being irrational. And a lot of his followers are saying, who are you? Look at you. Look at what he's got and look at what you've got. Look at how he lives and look at how you live. He's got Rolexes. He's got he's up to his eyes in beautiful women. He's got, Lotus car, Ferrari. He's got all the money in the world. And, he's won kickboxing titles. He's made millions out of cam girls' websites. And look at you. Look at what you're doing. You're sitting in that little room. You've hardly got anything. You've hardly got any followers. Okay. I mean, Andrew Tate has more money than me. Women are more attracted to him than they are to me. He's got some beautiful watches. He's got beautiful cars. I like Rolexes too. I love racing cars. Well done to him for that. All I'm saying is that the reasons that he's presented for his belief in Islam are not really rational reasons. They're fallacious. He's presenting fallacies to support his religion. That's all. I've got no issue. I've got no problem at all saying that Andrew Tate's better than I am. He's got more money than me. He's got all the beautiful women that anybody's ever dreamed of. I've got no problems admitting that he's better than me in that sense, but he can still be wrong about religion. Right, where are we? Who's an old man? I'm not 60 yet. Let's have a look. Calvin, the biblical transcendent God is proven by transcendental. No, no, Calvin, I don't agree with that, but I'm not. This video is not going to deal with transcendental arguments. Who is it? Is it Jay Dyer? Somebody was saying on the line recently to Matt Dillahunty that Jay Dyer's transcendental argument has not been refuted. I don't even know any Christians ever who believe in God because of philosophical arguments. Typically, they believe in God for other reasons, and then challenged by atheists, they then go out and look for philosophical arguments. I'm not saying that's always the case, but a lot of the time that is true. Oh, well, deranged philosopher, you can make an argument. Okay, do that then. I'll take a look at your channel, deranged philosopher, your argument for God. I'll read it through. You made Matt Dillahunty run today. Which caller were you on the line? 133 is not that high for an IQ. You're making a lot of claims there, but you've not said anything so far that I find it sort of impressively intelligent. But I'll go and take a look at your channel. So when did you speak to Matt Dillahunty? Can you provide some more information about that? Because I didn't see you on the line. Yeah, okay. I'll keep a lookout for you. Okay, well, while that's going on, I'm going to take a look at the Deranged Philosopher's channel in due course. Thank you very much for all your involvement, and I suppose I'll get going now. It's I don't know if any of you guys are watching the football. I almost died of a heart attack last night watching the England game. I suppose that if you're in Europe, you will be watching the football, and if you're not, you won't be. But the next time you see me, I'll know whether my team, England, have got through or not. That will probably, well, there's a chance that I might decide to do another live stream. I did 2 last week, so I might do another one before the end of the week. If there's something really interesting to talk about, something new anyway, I will do. So I'll say thank you very much for tuning in, and I will be back. I'll be back next Monday. Monday's going to be a regular thing, but I'm going to make it a bit later next Monday to give some of our American friends a chance to join us, because I think it's probably a little bit too early for them. Okay. Okay. I'm going to say good night now. Good night.